What's up, everybody? It is Hotline League episode 133, and boy, is it an exciting one because guess what? We don't have a guest. And I know some of you right now, you're thinking, when did they get
Dead
a guest?
podcast, can't get a guest.
Can't get a guest. But what you don't realize is that Mark and I actually have so much stuff we want to talk about, and normally these guests, coaches, pro players, or whatever, they just stop us from being as real with you guys as we'd like to. So
It's because they're not media trained. That Raz guy has no experience being on camera. And
yes,
it
exactly,
shows.
exactly, and they just shove all these opinions out there. So you get us tonight, but you know what actually is true? We haven't been getting through as many callers recently, and it's fine if like people have really good takes or whatever, but I do think that this will be a fun one where we should be able to cycle through some people more frequently. And yeah, how you been, by the way, Mark?
Pretty good. The same old.
Yeah.
You know.
You go on the drive with your girl?
No, we didn't. We had
I'm
a reason
sorry to
why
hear
we
that.
didn't, but I'm
Well,
trying to remember.
Hope things get better between you two. Anyway, Alienware, by the way, sponsoring the show. Thank you to Alienware.
She put some face cream on her face and had like an allergic reaction to it.
Oh Jesus.
So, I mean, it wasn't serious. It was just like irritated and red.
Oh.
So we were like, all right, probably don't want to go drive up the coast while your face is burning.
Well, I've had a good week. In fact, this is the first great week I've had in a while. I was really excited with all the interviews I did this past weekend, and just a variety of other fun little things. Beat Borderlands 3 with a friend. That was great. Some other good stuff. So this is a good vibes episode, okay? We got some good vibes going, is what
I'll be
what I'm
looking
getting
for
at.
any takes that want to tear Travis down, bring him back to earth. Don't want him feeling too good.
I realized I didn't turn my light on yet, so there we go. And I got to.
Do you have the Elgato lights?
I have one of them, yes.
I was gonna say the way that turned on looked like my Elgato light turning on.
Yeah, they're good lights, and they sent it to me for free. So shout out to Elgato for the light. Anyway,
any big
what
news
happened?
this week that we should hit first?
So one thing that I talked about that I don't know how comfortable you are talking about this. I assume you know nothing if it's true or not. But I put out that video where I said I feel like Riot within the either next year or the year after will bring LCS exclusively to a streaming platform and like sign an exclusive deal. I don't know if you have much to talk about on it, but I definitely wanted to raise it again because I should have gotten that video out last Monday. Instead, I think it came out like Tuesday or Wednesday, and it would have been good to have it on the show so that we could talk about it. But yeah, that would have been good. So we can get a call or something about that if anybody wants to talk about it.
I have no thoughts. I don't think on that other than like
I'm not
I don't really like the idea of things going exclusive.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it. Part of the reason I did that video was because it's the type of thing where Riot's not going to come to the community and say, hey, this is something we're thinking about. So if people are really upset about it, I feel like now's the time to have that discussion so that they don't end up signing something exclusive if that is something they are considering. What else?
Just today, Dom had a thing on the Crackdown where they said that some imports get like guaranteed starter clauses.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. It's difficult because there's no additional context. So
the only one they kind of named was Froggen in Spring.
Oh, they said that Froggen had a guaranteed
starter clause in Spring, yeah. And that's why Damonte couldn't start over him.
But Damonte could have started over him in summer.
Yes, it does not make any more sense for summer.
So sorry, I'm just like the confusion for me is if he had the guaranteed starter in his contract, why did that change for summer?
It might have been how they signed. I mean, I don't know what the contract was. It could have just been like, hey, you're guaranteed to be a starter for 3 months at least. Maybe it was a negotiation thing. They didn't want to give him a full year of it. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But I guess we can talk about that. If somebody has a strong take on it or something, or you see something that's worth it, that's fine. I think for me, it's like I have
I
not
think it's
heard that,
interesting.
and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. That certainly sounds like something I could totally believe a team doing, but I've not heard that. So
Yeah, I think it's just another like negotiation tool that players have that I think is. I don't know, I'm not really opposed to it. It's just like teams should be smart about when they do it.
yeah,
You know, like a brand name player coming over from Europe, you get fucking caps, and he wants a no trade or no start, a no non-start, whatever the fuck. I don't know
yes,
how
a no bench rule.
no bench clause as
Yeah.
well as a no trade clause. You probably fucking give him those, you know. Like the problem is to me isn't with the thing in the contract, it's with who you're giving it to and stuff. It's a case by case thing.
Yeah. Trying to see what else happened. I mean, this past weekend, I felt like we had some really great games. I mean, they were not all high skilled, I guess I would say, but they were fun. I really enjoyed this weekend's LCS, I guess I would say. How did you feel?
That was pretty good. I mean, TL and C9 played. Obviously, TL won, which is cool. But I think the fact that FlyQuest beat TL at the start of the week, it does still like. I feel bad for TL. Like they just can't get out of their own way to like make fans hyped about them. You know.
I mean, it's I
like they're 11-3, right? They
Yeah.
beat Cloud9, but they have to do it on the same weekend that they play FlyQuest and lose and look pretty bad.
Well, not
and then,
just
like,
that, but like, okay, we had the discussion last week, and you guys were flaming me for saying the asterisk next to them. And maybe asterisk isn't the right term, but I interviewed Jensen right after, and Jensen just seemed really depressed after that win.
after they won,
Yes, because they shouldn't have
he
won
played
that
bad.
game, right? And
Yeah.
and
in particular got.
I said like we talked about the comp, and I'm trying to remember. I want to be careful on paraphrasing this accurately, but people can go check out the interview whenever it's not out yet, but it'll be up by the time around the time this show goes live on YouTube. Jensen basically was like he felt like if they picked their standard, like a standard bot lane or whatever, they would have won. Like Cloud9 would have won.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's difficult for them to feel great about that because it's like, yeah, they tried this Zany comp against us and it lost, and like great. You know, it's just a weird thing to your point where it's like TL wins, but it doesn't really feel
No
like
one
they're the
cares,
better team.
you know, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel bad for them though because they are really good, but then like you have like weekends they go 2-0, but like Broxa has 0 kill participation through 25 minutes or whatever it was, and you're like, are we supposed to get hyped about this?
Yeah. Yeah. I talked to him about that too, about the Broxo stuff, and so he said it's not entirely Broxo's fault. I don't want to be spoiling my own interview. Everybody go watch the interview and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But he also was saying that he doesn't feel like it's entirely Brox's fault, that sometimes they are like drafting him stuff that he can't necessarily succeed on.
I will also say, I was surprised at this. I was doing some digging with our stats team about like trends and certain correlations because I was saying that like having a slow combined kills per minute, which TL has, usually results in a higher kill participation because the line of thinking is most of your fights are coming in team situations where it's easier to pick up assists and kills as a team, and so generally kill participation is higher with low kills per minute.
Right.
And I was talking with them about that with Broxa. I was saying like, yeah, that's, you know, like, and then he has a really low kill participation on a slow team, which means he's not playing that well.
Right.
But then we were looking up the trend lines, and actually jungle is the only position that scales inversely compared to all the other ones. Every single team will have a up and to the right. I think it is. No, down and to the right as you scale, where the higher kills per minute that you have, the lower kill participation that you have. Every position will have a downwards trend line if you plot them out. Jungle is the only one that actually has an upwards trend line, where it is if you are more active, you actually have higher kill participation because usually you're picking up more of those kills in the early game, and it's speaking to more of your scrappiness. And junglers are the most mobile position on the map, can get involved with all those kills going on. So actually, high combined kills per minute will usually correlate to a higher combined or a kill participation. And Broxy was actually kind of in line with the trend line for his kill participation for how slow TL is.
Are maybe over indexing?
I think potentially, myself included.
Right. Because you've been pretty critical of Broxa. That's where I picked up most of the bad Broxa vibes.
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't just me, but I definitely was in the critical Broxy camp. And if your team doesn't ever do anything in the early game, really, as a jungler, when that's like your most active time, this doesn't totally absolve him, but it wasn't too far out off the trend line. It was below it for sure, but it wasn't too far off. It was interesting, at least, and it definitely, it was something I hadn't realized. So I'll probably do a segment about it. You talk about ruining all your interviews. I'm sure we'll do a segment this weekend about trend lines. I'll try.
Are you? What was this? I missed the first part of this, but you and Freak got into a drama thing. I almost tweeted, but I'm trying to be more positive on Twitter. But
there's no actual beef. It's just a big troll
I know, but I almost tweeted like LCS storyline so dull that the broadcast is now manufacturing beef between the cast of personalities.
Yes. It was Freak was casting, and he got me and Prawley confused, and it's extra funny because we were wearing basically the same shirt. But he thought I said something Prawley did. Prawley said something along the lines of like Hex Drinker and Phantom Dancer no longer stack nicely. Yeah. And Freak was correcting him saying, well, they never stacked nicely. But he said, I said that. So I tweeted, what is Freak talking about? I never said this. Like, why is he arguing points that I never made? So then we just have been saying random shit back and forth to each other since then. Putting words in each other's mouths.
Well, now I am glad to understand because, you guys were going off on each other. I'm glad I got that meme explained. Thank you.
Yeah, those are the best kinds of memes, the ones where you sit there and you go, huh?
I'm trying to think of anything else that is notable from the past week. I'm trying to think of what other games. Oh, the CLG TSM game I thought was really interesting.
Why?
Because CLG. Let's put it this way. I tweeted something about how I thought Sunday's games were all pretty interesting, right? Because you had like the Huni Revenge game, which didn't end up with Huni Revenge. You had, battle for either tying first place or, surpassing CLG TSM El Clasico. And then I thought Golden Guardians Hunter Thieves a really interesting game because those teams are kind of neck and neck for who's going to, get into the middle or the top part. And a bunch of people came at me saying like TSM CLG is a dead rivalry. And while I somewhat agree with that, that game was not as one-sided as I think a lot of TSM fans would like it to have felt.
Fair.
Right? And so that was what was fascinating to me was like this. I guess CLG fans can say like our team is better, and the problem is I think TSM fans can only say like, wow, our team is not as good as we think it should be.
Yeah, for the third place team, I don't think TSM looks at that and feels good. I'm definitely on the kind of like dead rivalry train of thought. Like, I
mean, if CLG had beaten TSM and like we need some eventful thing to occur where like CLG edges TSM out of playoffs or something like that. But
I mean, that's the part that that's lacking in the rivalry is like any sort of results. I mean, CLG did have like one summer split where they made top 3, but then they lost in Gauntlet, didn't make Worlds, so it's kind of like
yeah.
And that's the problem is like, okay, they were 4-2 at the first time they played in spring or in summer, excuse me, and we kind of tried to hype it then on broadcast, and then immediately following that they go on a fucking 1-7 I think it's 1-7 slide. All right, you guys were as bad as we all were saying.
Kelby's in the chat saying a lot of things. I try to get Kelby on this show, and
why? If he's here, why isn't he just here?
I don't know. It's a good question, and I'd be happy to have him on, but I guess this is.
If you guys would like to see Kelby on, definitely tweet at him.
So he just said, "Please no." Anyway, so I guess we've talked about we've hit most of the big beats, so we can open up the floor for discussion. I think this will be an interesting episode because we are getting late enough into the split that I think people can start to make pretty strong statements on this stuff. So I guess we will see.
Yeah, I think it's a good week to call in and kind of give your final thoughts. Like even the race at the bottom in air quotes is relatively compelling for how those things normally go. Immortals, Dig, 100 Thieves, and CLG, I could see any of them missing playoffs or making it, from this point on, which I think is more interesting than it has been in the past.
Well, let's see. I'm assuming you're looking for some callers.
I'll start.
Right now.
I need to do my spiel first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So if you guys haven't seen, this is actually a live call-in show. You can get on yourself. You want to join the Discord in order to do that. Spam it in Twitch chat. When you get here, go ahead and join the Pleb Calls voice channel. You can mute once you're in there. No one wants to hear you breathing through your microphone. Then in the Pleb Topics text channel, you'll go and actually write your take out. Try and make sure this is a take. Don't say I want to talk CLG. Say I think CLG is actually fine. They're going to rally for playoffs, and here are my reasons. Don't make it too long. Give me a little bit of thought behind it, and then if I like your take, I'll pull you into the waiting room where you will hang out until it's your turn to come on air. We'll do a quick audio shake, and then you'll be here.
And if you are a sub, please go ahead and put your take in the subtopics channel after you have synced yourself with the Discord. That's how it works. You sync Twitch and Discord. You can see the subtopics channel. It moves a little slower there, so it does give you a bit of an edge on getting on the show. And we want to thank you for being a sub.
You can also
go ahead.
Donate to my Venmo, and you'll definitely get on.
People will probably do that. You need to be careful.
Okay, don't do that. I will not.
But if you donate to mine, we'll get you in. Speaking of subs, let's give a couple shout-outs to them while Mark is gathering some folks. And Arrow, thank you for the 30 months. How nice of you. Ghostwriter just hit a whole year. Peruse, 19 months. Pat My Body. Gengarifith. Bernks 19. Kiwi Mullet Boy, 30 months. Green Tea Ho. Weird Dude 25 for 2 years. Nanuko 111 and Texas Yeens. Ho ho ho. Thank you to everybody who subbed. I super appreciate it. Papa Smithy says freelance caster woes. What is that in reference to? I don't know what that's in reference to. Did we say something about freelance casters? I don't know. Oh, the Venmo
about me,
thing.
I was going to say about me wanting Venmo.
Yeah. You gotta scrap to get to a good situation. Anyway, I think we are ready. I don't know how many callers you have, or if you want to go grab one, but I think
I
we're
can
good.
start. I have enough to at least get us rolling.
Yeah. There goes Mark. By the way, thank you to everybody who has been subbing. As I just said a second ago, we're a little low on subs this month, and maybe I need to stream more. I don't know, but I really appreciate it whenever people do that type of thing. Always nice. By the way, I should shout this out. A lot of people still sometimes message me and say, like, hey, can I get the show as a podcast? But what you don't know is that thousands of people are listening to the show as a podcast every week, because it's on Spotify and iTunes and a bunch of places. So before you ask me about getting the show as a podcast, which happens all the time for some reason, just go look up Hotline League on Spotify or other places. You'll find it. Good. Does Twitch Prime sub count the same as a regular sub? Yes. Or Teebs, thank you. Oh, and we've been adding in some new emotes and stuff recently, too, so people who are subs can play around with those. We got some more coming, too. First caller is here, the Bear23. Where are you calling from?
Lexington, Kentucky.
Lexington, Kentucky. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to talk about teams experimenting on stage. I just think it's a little strange. When, there's only, 18 games in the split, and, you're trying to get the bye. I mean, perfect examples, this C9 this weekend. I mean, I just don't know why teams don't just pick their strongest draft when the games count and experiment during the week. I mean, I'm sure they're playing, how many games? I just think you should just go for the win on Saturday and Sunday or Friday.
Let me ask you, what if C9, and I'm not saying I have knowledge of this, but what if C9 did practice and experiment with that comp all week and they had like a 80 to 90% win rate with it?
I mean, I guess you could justify it then. Maybe another counterpoint to that is, people complain about TL drafting the scaling comps, and, they're like, oh, we want to see something new, but, they're 11-3. Tied for first. I mean, I don't see the problem with it. And I mean, you can adapt in the best of fives and stuff. You can practice it during the week, and I have no doubt these people aren't good enough to, play it when it counts. When, like you said, maybe they've practiced a bunch during the week. But drafting the scaling comps works for them. I don't see what the problem is and why everyone seems to not want to see that.
So before we get too far into the TL side of it and potentially, playing a slow style, why teams experiment on stage, especially when they're in a strong position? Scrims are a fucking mess. That's the honest truth. And you can ask any coach, any player who ever played the game, they'll tell you how whack scrims get in every region too. I mean, it's probably worse in North America. I know some players from other regions say, "Oh, North America is the worst region for scrims," whatever. But everyone still has those kind of like scrims just aren't at the same level for a variety of reasons. And so, if you have a draft and you think it's good, and you want to really test to see it, and you want to actually have to close a game out, because what often happens in scrims is like C9 might get that lead versus a team. They might feel awful about it, the way TL was saying that they felt like they got clapped, and then you go and the team surrenders at like 22 minutes, and you didn't actually have to close the game out. Whereas when you get on stage, you have to actually win the game. The team will not surrender, and so you're playing a good team in TL, probably the best team in North America except yourself. You're playing in a serious environment where they cannot forfeit and give up. And you're playing during the regular season where you already have a good buffer on the bye week. This is the ideal time to experiment. There is absolutely no better time to try something new.
I have a question, Bear. If C9 had won that game, would you still be calling in with this take?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I've always thought that that's a bit of a strange thing to do. Especially, I mean, I know there's the 2-game gap between them and TSM, C9, TL, and TSM.
Yeah.
But, I just don't know why you risk that playing something, that you're just not as comfortable on. I mean, sure, I know they've probably practiced it a hell of a lot and maybe they felt good on it. But, I mean, I don't think anyone could say that's probably the best draft they could have pulled out based on everything else they've played over the course of, 1 2/3 splits. And, I don't know, just what if they blow some games they shouldn't and TSM catch up and they miss the bye?
It's hard to imagine that, though, with 4 games left. And 2 of the games that C9 is going to face are Golden Guardians and, who's their second game? Oh, CLG, right? Like,
I mean, and they had the head-to-head tiebreaker over TSM. So what would need to happen to lose that was they would need to go 0. I mean, TSM would need to go 2 games better than them. So if C9 go 2-2 somehow over the next 4 games, TSM still needs to go 4-0 or better, right? To
and then I think they would have and then TSM and Cloud9 play each other soon, so that would determine whether or not, then they would have a tiebreaker chance with TSM, I think. Correct?
Have they only played once so far? Yeah, you're right. They've only played once so far, so they would need to play.
They play on Sunday.
Yeah, so they would need to go 4-0 versus 2-2 or 3-1 versus 1-3 or whatever the fuck the math works out to. And it just feels so unlikely that would happen. And as well as the fact that you don't know that this isn't going to be some OP dominant strategy. What if everyone in the world starts playing this after the CC9 do it? Like Tarek Sona, that shit was busted. And TL, back when they were the dominant team, they experimented within the regular season. They got it good. They perfected that kind of play style for themselves. And they started using it at international competition because they thought it was a good strategy. And you think this is some experimentation. People around the world have commented that they've seen it. Like if you watch LS's co-stream, which is a good co-stream, the pro players were in there talking about how, oh yeah, Sona and Lux, we've seen this bot lane before, It's people are playing it. People are experimenting all around the world. So there's so much upside to it and so little downside for the experimentation.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly unlikely that TSM would pass them. I wasn't saying I think that'll happen or anything, but
you just don't like the risk.
Yeah, I don't like the risk. I mean, would you say, Mark, that they couldn't have had a better draft that you would have felt better about them winning on versus that? I just don't think that's their best one. And
that's not even the argument, though. Yeah, of course, C9 has better drafts that they're more practiced on. that doesn't have anything to do with when's the right time to experiment or why you would play this on stage, right?
I mean, I would be more excited to see, to your point, the pair. I'd be more excited to see them win with this comp that they drafted this past weekend than with like a standard one I'd seen them win with a million times, because we know that, or we would learn like, oh yeah, I would have more confidence in them headed off to Worlds. Let's put it that way, right? Like, oh look, they came up with this innovative thing, or like they were the first to showcase it, or like they can play these different styles or whatever. I think I would be excited to see that, you know, and I think perhaps they would have won this in like a best of 3 scenario. I don't know, but
when G2 was playing Pyke in every position and their players were doing crazy shit, you know, like they were experimenting a lot in you know, I'm talking about last year in summer and stuff. Like they still made finals of Worlds and they won MSI, and they were a very unique team and they had unique strategies that threw people off. And they won games at MSI with their Pyke top. I believe it was MSI that they had that massive comeback game with Pyke top and no one really knew what to do about it. You know, like if you watch that during the regular season, would you look at Pyke top and go, ah, man, they're experimenting and this is stupid. They shouldn't do this. They should play their best comps, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's really all I had to say. I just wanted to get your all's thoughts on it.
No, I mean, I appreciate it. And I think, look, you're going to find other people, I think, who would have the philosophy of you should always go for whatever you think is going to give you the best chance at a win. And by the way, for all we know, C9 had played this and they had massive success with it. And so they felt like this was their best chance at preserving their record. We don't know. Maybe they had started to drop games playing in scrims with the strategy. Like maybe they felt like people were starting to figure out their normal shit. So they had to go with something unconventional. Who knows? But I think in this situation, like I am really going to have a hard time getting frustrated with NA teams for trying something that is unconventional, especially whenever they are in like a solid spot, like it feels like C9 is. So anything you want to shout out or say as we move on to the next caller of the bear?
Shout out to Alienware and you guys. This is the classic Monday night ritual for me.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to have that. It's our classic Monday night ritual as well, other than when we move it to Wednesdays. Anyway, thanks so much, Bear.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Everyone. All right. We got another caller coming up in just a second. Mark is off to grab them. A couple more shout outs to Wandering Tamashi and Wild LOL. Thank you, Wild LOL. Subscribing to Travis Gafford Industries has made me a better person. Everyone should subscribe to TGI. Alienware's the best. Go to alienware.com/Travis today. Great sub message. I really appreciate that. Robot Russ is here. Robot Russ, where are you calling from?
Nashville, Tennessee.
And you've called in before, right?
I've just been a long-time subscriber.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, because I know your name. You've subscribed for so long, so it's great to have you on as a first-time caller. What do you want to talk about on the show?
You mentioned talking about a streaming service, and I thought it would be interesting to bring up something I read about a few weeks ago, that Tencent is starting a new streaming service, and they have their hands in quite a few games, so I think it would make sense for them to drop a ton of money into the scene and try to buy up a bunch of esports to start their streaming service off right, because apparently Microsoft couldn't do it by just doing individuals with Mixer.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, I feel like, did not do the best job of doing what they were going to do. But, okay, I'm trying to remember the name of this streaming platform, because I just remember. Trovo, that's right. So, yeah, this is supposedly happening. There's been a lot of talk about it, and I think even a couple articles. And so, yes, for context again, for those that didn't watch the video, I proposed that Riot will go exclusive with a streaming platform soon. I think they would probably go with Twitch or YouTube. Robot Russ, are you suggesting that they would Riot would potentially exclusively stream their events on this new Tencent service?
I mean, I don't think that Trovo is a great service by any means, but they're kind of starting off, so I think it's going to take a little while for them to get started. I think it won't happen this year, maybe next year, and if it does, it'll be a limited deal. And I personally think it will fail. I do think that in the end, YouTube or Twitch will win, but I think that they're going to try to get their hand in it.
People can go look at trovo.live.com. It looks so much like Twitch. It's actually very funny. The front page is
Control C, Control V.
Yeah, exactly. What is the copy my homework, but don't make it look like you copied it or whatever. So yeah, the streaming service is up. You can go stream on it. Honestly, they should capitalize, I think, on trying to get a bunch of Mixer people over, because I think usually the Mixer people were on Mixer because they didn't want to stream on Twitch. But so here's what I could see. I could totally see Trovo just quietly start streaming LCS and Worlds soon. Because right now, Riot, like a lot of people don't know this, but I think it was last year, Caffeine streamed League of Legends LCS stuff. Riot is very clearly not in an exclusive relationship with anybody right now. So if Tencent maybe asked them to, or they paid some money or something like that, I could totally see Trovo streaming League stuff soon, League esports. However, I do think that if the LCS moves to an exclusive deal, Trovo would lose it. I don't think that Tencent is going to bully Riot into sticking their LCS exclusively on this streaming platform that most people admittedly have not heard of. And so I think it's skeptical that it'll be there exclusively, but I do totally think that it'll potentially they'll pick up LCS this year, for instance, and stream it over there.
All right, let's say you're someone who didn't watch your video, Travis. If it's not Trovo, who do you think it's going to be /why/ should we be excited or should we fear the future?
So I think, okay, if I'm Riot, here's what I do. I go out and I talk to everybody. And I get everyone to give me their huge numbers, Facebook and Trovo, and if Spotify is actually doing the streaming service that's been rumored, you get all these people, and then you leverage the biggest numbers against Twitch and YouTube, and you hope that YouTube gives you the most money. Sorry, you hope that Twitch gives you the most money, because I think that Twitch is the place where if you go with Twitch, you will probably see the lowest dip in viewership if you go there exclusively. I know that there are diehard YouTube viewers out there who are like, I'm not going to watch LCS if it's on Twitch and not on YouTube. But I think you won't see that many people leave or stop watching if you go with Twitch. And I do think that Twitch allows Riot to do, they already have other relationships with them. They've done they've got co-streaming on it. They've got, which they have on YouTube, but it actually has much more of a presence on Twitch. They've got drops. They've got all these different things that they do with Twitch, and I think that that's most likely where they would go. And I think they have a lot of leverage with Twitch too, because Riot, League is huge on this platform, and so I think Twitch would feel it pretty painfully if they left. And unlike Ninja, who could ebb and flow, I think Riot is obviously going to be with Twitch for a long time, or Riot will be around as a streaming situation for a long time.
The only thing I don't like about that is YouTube's player is just so much better. I actually will pull both up, Twitch and YouTube, and I'll pull Twitch up whenever I hear a funny call or a funny thing in the game and I want to see what Twitch chat's reaction is. But otherwise, I watch on YouTube and I use the different features to skip back 5 or 10 seconds and rewatch fights a bunch of times. Whereas Twitch is just
and I wonder if Twitch has the ability to do any of this stuff and they just don't deploy it because it's way more expensive to have it out. Maybe you talk to Twitch and you're like, can you please give us 2 of the YouTube features exclusively for us, or as a partner thing, if they've developed the rewind stuff but they've never deployed it because I'm sure it's server intensive or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they could do. I mean, obviously, this technology exists. It's not like Twitch can't do that. They just haven't for whatever reason. Yeah,
and I mean, the viewership thing's hard to tell because YouTube viewership looks bigger, but like you said about the co-streaming, it's hard to know. What would happen to co-streamers on Twitch if you went exclusive YouTube?
Yeah, I think they would probably not be co-streaming it anymore is what would happen.
Yeah, I would assume.
Russ, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I just really hope they don't do this. I think that they might. I hope that they don't, because some of the ways that I really enjoy watching is actually on my television, and I don't want to have to find an app that doesn't work for my smart TV or anything like that. Having parties
like a Fire Stick or something.
Yeah, I got a Roku and PlayStation and other stuff, but I mean, it's just finding a new way to do it.
They don't even have an official Twitch app on Roku, right? Or anything?
Yes, they do. They have, but I usually watch it on YouTube anyway. But yes, they have one on the Roku store.
because for a while my TV is a Roku TV, and before I had to use a thing called Twitched or something, Twitch Zero, and it wasn't an official Twitch app. It was like a reboot thing. And
I got the little box. It might be different.
Most people are saying Roku doesn't have it, so
it might be different.
I don't know. But Twitch
I
seems to disagree with you.
I either have to use Wi-Fi to broadcast my TV to my computer screen to my TV, or I just, like you, watch it on the YouTube app, which works great and still has that rewind feature. I'll watch LEC. I'll wake up in the morning, flop on my couch, and I'll watch whatever game's going on, and then I'll rewind back on my TV to, like, you know, whatever, because they're in their post game, and I'll watch another game while they're in their post game getting ready for the next game, and it's fucking awesome.
Oh, you don't watch their analyst stuff? I feel like that would be valuable for you, Mark.
I definitely do. I just go back later.
Oh boy. Okay, well, we just learned something here, everybody.
I watched. I'm kidding. I'm just saying that, like, it depends on the day.
You know, and those guys think you're their friend. Dracos and Medic, they already say such nice things about you, and
they
just
really?
to see
I
you
think I'm
betray
pretty
them.
clear about where our relationship is. I don't think.
Well, I think that you just made it very clear to them, so I think it might have fundamentally changed over the course of this.
Burn some bridges.
Russ, so you would not like it. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, somebody in Twitch chat said, like, how is this good for the viewer? It is not. Like, there's just no world in which, in my opinion, this is going to be good for the viewer unless somehow the partnership is able to create, like, hey, yeah, we're bringing the rewind feature to Twitch. Like, they're going to launch it exclusively for us in the beginning as part of an experiment, and also, like, we're going to do all these other really cool things to help you out. This is one, like, the only way it's good for the viewer is if you're willing to, and I don't think most viewers are interested in hearing this, like, hey, the LCS will die if we don't do this, right? Like, 4 of these teams will leave, or they'll sell their spots, and, like, this is going to be super sustainable for a long time. That's why this is good for the viewer. But I don't think people care about that or want to hear it.
I just think it's going to bring a lot of money in, because it's going to give them leverage, like you said, to put it against each other. And then, you know, LCS can make some money and hopefully better the broadcast with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the pitch you would give to fans is like, hey, with this new money, we can do X, Y, and Z, and hopefully have some real tangible things that you.
Papa Smithy says ProView as part of it could be cool. Actually, that'd be super neat. What if you were a Twitch Prime user and you get ProView as part of your being a Twitch Prime person? That'd actually be super smart and super cool.
I'd do it.
Would that make you feel happier about it, Russ?
If it was Twitch, yeah. But I mean, I already sold into Amazon. I gave them my soul, I guess, already.
Yeah, I mean, most of us have, unfortunately. Either way, Russ, anything you want to say before we move on to a quick break?
No, thank you so much. Thanks, Alienware, and good job, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one. All right, moving on to a quick break here. We're going to talk about our sponsor, Alienware. Speaking of Alienware, they sponsor us. There's an Alienware computer back there, an Alienware monitor, an Alienware laptop. You can see this all. Actually, this is a box. That's kind of messy in my office, but that's also an Alienware box. Either way, Alienware sponsors so much of what we do here, and I know you guys have all heard this already, but they've got some really great products over there. I'm going to focus more on that rather than just talking about how much they help us, because you guys have heard me say that. But you should go check out a bunch of different things. So, first off, they've got the Alienware Area 51M. This is like a great desktop replacement. You can actually open it up, and it's a little bit more accessible for upgrading than your usual laptop. So maybe you're a college student and you want to be able to game, you want to feel like you've got a desktop power without lugging a desktop back and forth whenever you're home or you're going to college, you're going to a friend's place or whatever. Alienware Area 51M is that kind of desktop replacement. Again, you can see all this stuff as I'm talking about it over at alienware.com/Travis. They've got the new Aurora, fantastic stuff in it. The new Intel chips are in it. I use this 34-inch curved gaming monitor. Absolutely love it. I'm playing Death Stranding right now, and being able to use the cinematic mode that they made, cinematic widescreen mode that they made exclusively for PC. You can't really do that on a console. That's actually super fun, because that game is, I know people say walking simulator. It's not a walking simulator. You just need to play it for a while to get to the... Anyway, experiencing that in this ultra-wide format is so cool, because it's like watching a movie, especially whenever you're going through all those like beautiful cutscenes. Either way, they've got some great hardware. You can go check it out. A bunch of cool stuff. If you're in the market, go check it out. If you're not in the market, go check it out. You could use Travis 10 off Q2 at checkout. And this is important, by the way, because that code, I'm going to pull the veil back a little bit. If you are listening to this, I think after August 1st is when they do it. It's going to be Travis 10 off Q3. They update the codes so that these things, they stick with us. They don't get spread around on some other site, 6 months later. So Travis 10 off Q3 if you're buying in August. If it's in July, be sure to use Travis 10 off Q2. And thank you so much to everybody who supports us through supporting Alienware. They do some really cool stuff. So thanks again to Alienware for all the support. We're going to make an Alienware emote too. I haven't gotten that plugged in yet to the Twitch yet, but
I'm going to get an Alienware face tattoo as well.
Are you? That's awesome, man.
Yep, right here. Just the whole logo on my face.
Can you do me a favor? And I can maybe get them to pay for that.
I was going to say, can I invoice that?
Yes, but let me get Yoni to sell it to them. Because,
will they also pay for the laser removal surgery once the sponsorship ends? Can I
that maybe not, but if in the future, and I don't think this is ever going to happen, I think I'll die being sponsored by Alienware, but God forbid something crazy happen. Maybe the new sponsor would replace them would pay for the laser removal of the Alienware logo. So I think this is something you should do. I think that's...
I'll look into it. It's quarantine. Maybe I'll just have Ashley try it. Try her hand.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, the haircut went great. So, and the last time she did something involving a face, sounds like it went really well. So, tattoo seems great. Anyway,
all right, next caller.
Yeah, next caller. Shout out to Nick and Patwack at Patwack. I'm just gonna call you Patwack. Thank you, Patwack, for the sub. I appreciate it. See, we got our next caller here. Cade is calling. Cade, where are you calling from?
Galveston, Texas. What's going on, guys?
Galveston, Texas. Have you called him before?
I have, but I was in Austin, Texas there. I was in college.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I was like, oh, Cade, he called in whenever he was in Austin, but now he's in Galveston. I'm confused as to what's happening. So I'm glad we got that figured out. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I want to talk about CoreJJ. I think he's the best player in the LCS, and the best player the LCS really has ever seen.
Ever seen? Holy moly. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's arguably the MVP favorite He's arguably the MVP favorite, and that would be his second MVP since coming back. I mean, he had that time in Dignitas, of course. But he's come back. This would be his fourth split, I believe, and arguably could win the MVP again. And you could argue that this should be his third MVP because he was the runner-up in summer 2019 behind Svenskeren. I just think since he's gotten back here, he's shown a level of play that NA has not seen.
What did you think of him last split?
Last split, he was bad, but I think that was internal issues. He was bad last split, but I think that was internal issues going on with the team, and the entire team looked bad, probably besides Jensen. I think Jensen looked pretty good last split, but yeah, last split was bad. But I think, 3 out of the 4 splits he's been here, he's been the best player in the league, and he's proven it.
I like this take. I think
okay, here, I mean,
there's 2 parts there, right?
Go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say there's the this season, and then there's the historic one. What were you gonna say, Travis?
Well, okay, so first off, are we in agreement that he's the only problem is there's also Blabber. You got Blabber and kind of competing to see if he can take the MVP slot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I think mainly the reason I say that is because, especially this split, you can tell, I mean, he's Team Liquid's main win condition, and his playmaking is really the reason why they're winning all these games. And I find it crazy that just a single player has his team tied for first. And, I think maybe you could say Bjergsen back in the olden days of LCS maybe was doing that, but I don't think he was doing it to the level that CoreJJ is doing it right now.
So on this split, I think it's a question of like highs and lows and resource allocation. It gets really, really murky because like Blabber's, statistical dominance in game when you watch him in the good games, and he hasn't been as great recently when they've started doing more experimenting. But through the first 9 games and all that stuff, he was so fucking good, dude. He was like head and shoulders above all time. And we had a segment where we talked about how like basically historically all time #1 for all junglers ever in almost every single category. And so like he's obviously a beast, but you know, he does get his whole team to kind of play around him. And when he doesn't, there's a pretty noticeable difference in level of gameplay. CoreJJ, on the other hand, as a support, you can't really play around your support beyond giving them draft priority to say like, hey, what are you going to play? And we'll craft our team comp so you can kind of have more flexibility. You're not stuck on tank duty like a Braum or something. And then we'll give you a later pick in the draft to counter pick.
Well, so Mark, because you don't have to, I think you can do this. You can say this now because there's still 2 more weeks, so you won't decide. But like, if you had to choose today who to vote for, you know, if you'd vote for Blabber or
I'd probably vote for Blabber still, but Core would probably be my second vote, which is flying up the standings compared to where I had it, you know, even like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Even recently, I was like, we were having a segment. We had a segment this week about MVP candidates, and we were debating Jensen or CoreJJ, who is the favorite on Team Liquid, even because Jensen's been incredible this split as well. And if you look at their Shen game where he was on Azir, a lot of that was him delivering Shen. Then he had the game versus Damonte where he absolutely clapped him as Lissandra. And then he had a game versus, I think it was Pobelter, might have been someone else. And he just crushed them in lane in that game as well. And so there was like a pretty, like there's three games in a row recently where, you know, Jensen was incredible. But then this C9 game, you know, Jensen was a non-factor and it was basically 100% on CoreJJ for winning that game for them. So I'm leaning more towards CoreJJ off kind of recency bias as well. He's been good all split, to be fair. I'm not saying that, but
he's climbing up in comparison.
He's climbing up, and especially if they somehow end the season tie between C9 and TL, and they have to play a tiebreaker or something, like that's super fucking hype. Because honestly, I don't think CoreJJ is out of the race, even though I said Blabber. Like my mind's not made up at all.
Yeah, and I also like one of the things that stood out to me back in 2019, like both in MSI and at Worlds. I know they were Braum and Tom Kench were really powerful in the meta back then, but those were consistently getting banned against him just because he was so good at those picks and people didn't want to deal with it with him playing it. Like he just seemed to me like he knows how to play everything so well for support, and I just don't think we've seen that type of. I mean, I know we've seen that type of play from like like Bjergsen or a prime Bjergsen or a prime Doublelift. But I feel like CoreJJ has just brought another level to the LCS. And I know Dom talked about, I Will Dominate talked about how he feels like some imports, like someday in CoreJJ, just make the region better and how they elevate the LCS just by being here. And I feel like CoreJJ really exemplifies that.
So here, Mark, here's my follow-up question for you. Because the second half of the take is like most valuable of all time. And I'm just wondering, it's been less than 4 splits, one of which even our caller who's positioning it is like said that CoreJJ was bad. It's hard for me to feel like we can say best player of LCS of all time in such a short period.
Yeah. I mean, it depends, I think, how you frame it. Because if you're talking about like all-time contributions, you know, you start taking into, like you're saying, longevity. And someone like a Bjergsen or a Doublelift who has won way more splits on different teams with different teammates in different situations over different metas and all this kind of stuff, you know, it's hard to say CoreJJ is better than that on an accomplishment level. But in terms of level of dominance and level of play, you know, being a world champion, a lot of the times world champions come to North America and there's a drop. Even if they're still good, there's a drop. I mean, I don't really feel like there was a big drop in CoreJJ.
Piglet's still holding it down.
Yeah. Like even Impact is a great player, but right. He's not the same as 2013 SKT Impact. Whether that's because the competition stepped up or whatnot, but I would just say that CoreJJ is the best North American support in terms of level of play we've ever seen when he's playing well. I do think he had a bad split. I think everyone saw that. That could have been internal issues if you're playing with an unhappy bot laner who's not practicing and has an attitude issue. I could see that impacting your play, you know?
How dare you talk about tactical that way?
So, like, I don't really blame him for that split, but it doesn't change the fact that he played kind of like poop on the Rift. But now he's back, and so there's no question that was like, something was in the water. Like he's right back to where he was in 2019. So he's definitely the best play-wise support we've ever seen in North America. So I can kind of buy the argument, that he's one of the best players in terms of level of dominance over his competition. It feels pretty legit.
Yeah. I think that would I definitely give him best support.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is there anybody else that who else would be in that conversation?
Even like Afro and Special had periods of time where they were great for North America and the region.
Yeah. But never, I don't think either of them ever felt like their team was winning games off of them.
I mean, they were. I think didn't Afro get an MVP for his?
Yeah, he did for 100. Yeah,
100
when he
Thieves
first joined
games.
100 Thieves.
Yeah. But I ultimately agree with your point. Like it didn't feel quite like this even back then.
Yeah. Cade, any final thoughts before we move on to the next caller?
No, I think that's it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in.
You have a podcast you want to shout out?
I'll just shout out Hotline League and Alienware.
Hey, there you go. Thank you so much for the call.
Appreciate it, guys.
See ya.
Off to the next caller, Marcos. Snarf051, thank you for the 17 months. Man, it's so great to see how many people are great human beings just by subbing. It's like sometimes I want to know who the great humans are, and right now I know that there are 812 of them. I just wish there were a few more. Chill is here. Chill, where are you calling from?
Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver, Canada. I hear it's been really hot there.
Yeah, it's really cooked up in the last couple of weeks. It's been nice.
Yeah. It's been actually getting chillier here in LA. Mark, have you been feeling that? It's been kind of cold.
There was a period of time where I have like an AC unit in my living room, and like if I wasn't near it, I was dying. And
yeah,
it's not so bad now.
I mean, we've been closing the windows at night. Anyway, chill. No pun intended. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, I want to talk about that EG will be a top 3 team if they replace Huni with Kumo.
Oh boy. I'm not even that's an interesting take.
Hit us with the logics.
Yeah.
All right, I got 3 main points I'm going to fire at you guys, and then you can run with it.
Yeah, please make sure they're points and not paragraphs, because that's an issue sometimes people have.
All right, number 1 is I want to criticize the way they executed the swap out. They're switching up multiple variables with coin flip mid laner and then switching into coin flip top laner while they're mixing around other steady pieces. So how are you supposed to analyze a change and know what's working and what's not if you're not isolating for anything? So that's the first thing. Second thing is I want to reference the dive last week where they talked about how Broken Blade can't really demand the kind of resources Someday does if he's not going to play like Someday. And Huni was down in Academy, not playing like Someday, comes up and jumps on Camille, split pushes, and then runs it down late game. Classic Huni. And last thing is, I believe they said that the reason they're bringing up Huni was for shot calling and for those late game moments where they say attack. Do you guys not have enough shot calling with Svenskeren, Zazel, and Bang? 2-time world championship beside Faker hard carrying, by the way. So, yeah, those are my points.
Winning a world championship doesn't necessarily mean you're a shot caller, but...
No, but he's not the only one on there, right? So
I feel like they did actually change one variable with the change, and that is Bang's mood. That's my guess. I'm guessing. I get the feeling they put a lot of emphasis on Huni and Bang are friends, and that's a big part of it. And we know that Bang is a pretty emotional player, an emotional guy. And I get the feeling that the change was probably one that Bang wanted. I don't have inside information, but if I had to guess, this is I don't know. I think that's actually probably half the reason they made the move, if I was to speculate. Mark, do you think I'm crazy for that? You muted yourself. I don't know if you meant to.
Yeah, I muted myself on purpose. I think the last point was the weakest one, so I'll just mostly glaze over it. Bang seems like a pretty quiet person, and maybe Huni is a good shot caller. I know during Immortals he made that run. He was pretty vocal. Same with his Fnatic stuff. So, from my understanding, I've never worked with him personally, but let's assume that the coaching staff is competent enough to be like, yeah, he makes good late game shot calls. Maybe his decision making on what fights to take and whatnot might be a different problem. But to your other points, I kind of understand what you're saying. I'm not sure I 100% agree with it. I kind of need to think my way out loud here because, you're talking about coin flip mid for coin flip top, but maybe with better macro, assuming that 0.3 is fair for that he's a better decision maker. It's still harder to play around top lane, I think, in general. And you're doing it in the middle of the split where there's been less time. Travis makes a good point about for Bang's sanity, because it sounds like Huni and Bang get along.
I didn't use the word sanity, but
that's what you said.
But
said it,
but I kind of wish I did. I think,
yeah. Yeah, and I know that Kumo, I'm of the opinion that Kumo had a great start to the split. I was very impressed, but was starting to drop off a little bit. So I'm not like, I think Kumo's incredible, but I'm not convinced by this new EG either. There's the problems that you've correctly identified about Huni's.
Mark, I'm so sad of these false starts. I get excited, 100 Thieves makes a change. They beat Cloud9. Woo! 100 Thieves, everybody contracts. Woo! And then it just doesn't go anywhere. And now I feel like the same thing is happening with EG. Ironically, also with a Cloud9 win, you're like, oh man, look at this EG team. They made the change. It's sick. They had 3 days and then they beat. And now that also feels like a
yeah. I mean, that's how I feel too. And I think there is an argument to make that hey, Bang is really good. You guys could stop coin flipping in your solo lanes and make a standard team comp that plays more like TL around Bang. I think
to that point, I'm gold 5, so I can't really talk about meta, but Dragon is pulling so much attention. The soul is so powerful. If you want steady top lane, and then everyone's fighting 5v5 around Dragon all game anyways. You watch a game and it's just 4 minutes between fights, almost choreographed.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand that point about, hey, if Bang's your best player, even if you're talking about Jizuke or Kumo or Huni being someone else as your second best, or your playmaker through the early game to transition you, whatever. If they're coin flippy, that's still taking agency around Bang to reach late game before the game's over. So I understand that line of logic, but I can't help but worry about ceiling a little bit, because I feel like you'll lose in solo lanes to other teams if you can't figure it out. I would be concerned about Kumo going up against international competition. I'd be worried about him against someday. I'd be worried against him against Licorice, even people in North America. Even solo has had some pretty big games recently.
Yeah, but I'm just talking regular season. I'm not even thinking about international.
Oh, well, I think you have to think about those kinds of things in regular season. Because, okay, you put Kumo in, it's a more stable team. You pick up some wins against the shitters, right? You pick up some easier wins against the CLGs, the Dignitases, the teams, Immortals, the teams that are struggling in the bottom of North America. Those are more likely wins. Maybe you end with a better regular season record. But then heading into playoffs, I mean, EG's aspiration should absolutely be Worlds. They were top 3 in spring. They have pretty good players for the most part. They should be trying to figure out what's their best lineup to get them through playoffs. And I can see the other. I think I'm ultimately gonna disagree with you. I think figuring out whether it's Huni or Jizuke, getting one of those two players bolted down so they're not quite as coin flippy, and will be your best bet in playoffs. And so I can understand in regular season trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think what's unfortunate when I look at the EG roster and the fact that they made the changes, that team fairly confidently got 3rd place last split. And so it's kind of disappointing that we needed a mid-summer split change to just even get them to get to a place where hopefully they can make it to Worlds or be competitive, right? It's disappointing to see a team that did pretty well in the spring just suddenly start falling apart.
I mean, that's the thing with if you're using quote unquote coin flip players is it's not like literally 50-50. They win you half the games, they lose you. It's streaky, you know? So
Yeah.
like when you go through 4 bad Jizuke games in the first half of the split, half your games are him on Karma, Kassadin, Cassia, or was it Cassia? A Kog'Maw game, you know, you're like, okay, he's lost us half our games this split. Maybe we should look into an alternative.
Yeah. Well, either way, thanks so much for the call. Chill. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just gonna shout out my girlfriend for putting up with me listening to League all day long. So shout out to Manjot.
Hey,
Get a headset. What are you doing? Or do you
That's
mean
great.
not spending time with her because you're listening?
Not spend time with her. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good decision. Either way, Chill. Thanks so much for the call. Okay, on to the next caller. We got Snarf051. Thank you for the 17 months. I think I've already shouted you out, but just in case. Craig Yorger, thank you as well for the Prime. If anybody's watching right now, could you maybe just move your cursor over the stream? See if you see a blue crown. You see I'm trying to test something, and if you do see it, just go ahead and hit that free sub or Prime sub or whatever the button is. That's pretty good. Very helpful. When we don't have a guest, I awkwardly fill this space just selling out, and I feel bad for podcast listeners because, listen, I know you're here, podcast listeners. You're hearing my voice in a very unique way, and I just want to thank you for being there, for always listening, following, and doing this. Maybe you're on a drive somewhere right now. You're looking out the window, and you're wondering, when is Mark Zimmerman going to get back from the waiting room? And make it so that Travis isn't filling time by himself. And, you know, I don't have a great answer for you, but I would say get ready for my book podcast or book show, my book YouTube channel, because maybe you'll find that the audiobooks I talk about there are going to be better experiences for your commute than this podcast. You can finally stop listening to it.
Hello.
You're back. Thank God.
Sorry, someone was like, I gotta switch over to my computer, and then he was a little too slow, so I just went on to the next person, but I'm gonna do him later.
Okay, the River King is here. River King, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to talk about how I think that this end of the summer split is a perfect setup for another crazy Damonte Cinderella run, and that Golden Guardians legit are third best team in our region, and they have really strong carry players, and they're set up for success.
Who do you think would be the 3 teams that we would send to Worlds then?
I think C9 and a Team Liquid Golden Guardians.
So this is similar to the take we had last time.
Yeah, I figured people like talking about Golden Guardians. So
Because Mark, I mean, we last week, didn't we? I'm not criticizing you for pulling this call again, but isn't it similar to the Golden Guardians will go instead of TSM call?
I have other takes that I had in case.
No. Mark pulled you for this one, so we're going to talk about this one.
I don't remember that far back, dude. Come on.
Okay. Well, whatever. Anyway, go ahead, River King. Go ahead and explain.
I think the one thing that just prompted me was that when I was watching last Sunday, after these games, they just did this insane showing where like FBI is number 1 or 2 in like every practical metric that you can quantify for an ADC player. And I thought that was really crazy because I think when people talk about, best ADCs in the region, people are really, of course, talking about Sven. They're really hyping up Tactical. They're talking about Bang. Players like that. Doublelift is obviously doing a lot better this split. And then I included this in what I wrote in Discord. I really do think that Golden Guardians are kind of playing like a budget C9 style. Like their players individually might not be as good as C9's roster, which is definitely really strong. But Closer obviously is this really aggressive, really intelligent jungler that they're allowing to carry on things like Olaf and Graves and Nidalee. He's probably the only jungler in North America who's actually like doing well on Nidalee. Damonte obviously is really adept on Galio and Twisted Fate, and he's Zoe, and he's moving around the map. FBI and Huni Huhi's obviously, or not obviously. I think Huhi's really been performing really strong, and FBI has been gone under the radar. And then Haunser's I think also been doing some really stable performances. He's had a couple bad games, but he's also been really delivering for his team in a way that is also going underappreciated.
Sorry, Mark, was the stats thing that he referenced, was that something you guys showed on the broadcast? Are you muted, Mark?
Yeah, I'm muted. You got a fucking problem with that?
Okay, yeah, I was just confusing because your lips were moving. I didn't hear any noise. So
Yeah, it was
seemed like you were
definitely
answering my
intentional.
question.
All right, it
Yeah.
was intentional.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was on broadcast. We had a couple segments recently where we were hyping FBI a little bit.
So, first off, it is true that Hotline League. So last week after the show, because somebody called in very positive about Golden Guardians, Hunter messaged me, who runs Golden Guardians, and was like, "Man, Hotline League just filled with Golden Guardians fans. You guys always get, maybe we might get more positive takes about Golden Guardians than any other team. I don't know what's going on there, but
I'm a big Cloud9 fan, but I mean, I have a lot of respect for Hanser and Damonte and Closer and a lot of the players. So I always root for them if I can.
I like the Golden Guardians org too. I think they're pretty good in terms of just like, I appreciate like their little like coaches notes and some of their like the style of everyone in turtleneck sweaters. Like at least they're trying something a little bit. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, okay, Mark, help me out understand, because is FBI just a player that people don't really know too much about, and so that's why he's flying under the radar? And is he really flying under the radar? Is this guy one of the best ADCs in our league this split?
I think he's one of the best laning ADCs easily. He's actually really good now that I've started paying a little bit more attention to it. The reason I think he's a little overlooked is because of the closer attention, and closer being a lot of the playmaking in the early game. It's kind of hard not to watch him and talk about him more. And then come mid to late game, I think FBI has some mistakes he makes in the mid to late game, as well as like the whole team having issues. Like in that last game, Hanser potentially could have flashed in a zero ult at one of the Drake fights to be able to kill PoE, but then didn't do it. And I don't know, they were really hit or miss in their team fighting. And as an AD carry, that's usually when you shine the most, is in lane, in terms of like getting CSDs and stuff, which we're talking about. And then in team fighting, being able to navigate them really well. And if your team's hit or miss in team fights, you're a little shit out of luck, because it's not like you're side laning. Like you're not a mid laner or a top laner who gets to 1v1 mid to late game. You just never do that really as a marksman. So it's a little harder to shine individually.
One of my big concerns for Golden Guardians is, I believe, I'm looking at the schedule right now, going back, they have had one weekend where they went 2-0. And that was the weekend before last, where they played Immortals and Dignitas. And I just, like, it's difficult.
What are you saying, man?
I mean, it's difficult to say, now that's a team that's going to go to Worlds, and maybe they're going to pick it up. And maybe what we're seeing is that trend, I guess. It's just like they don't seem consistent enough to be able to do that. And Arrow says one weekend of 0-2, one weekend of 2-0. The rest are 1-1, just like any other team. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
If I may interject, Travis. I mean, I think like. Sorry. No, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I mean, Papa Smithy just said in the chat, like, what would you have said about Clutch Gaming? In 7 weeks, what would you said about Damonte then? And I think that what I was actually going to say, I just saw the message, but the problem with Golden Guardians last split, which functionally the same roster, but it was Golden Glue instead of Damonte, is that like you had team compositions where like, yeah, they definitely do want to play through Closer, and Closer's their strongest player, but you have Golden Glue, who's just kind of like sitting in lane trying not to lose on Syndra. And like that's definitely a strat that like might work for Evil Geniuses with Bang. But when you have Damonte like helping Closer the way like Niski helps Blabber, or like is moving practically around the map, I do think that's something that can look really scary in a best of 5 and gives them at least a lot more adaptation and like strengths or identity, which makes me more positive on that in like a playoff format when they would have to play a series.
So really quickly on the topic of the that happened with Clutch in week 7, or Papa Smithy's thing about, yes, I do not think that I would have been very confident that Clutch was going to Worlds. That is what makes their story kind of a miracle run, right? Where they had all these moments of possible failure, and then they like succeeded in every single one of those. I remember like Damonte saying like every game was basically one that they had to survive, otherwise they were screwed for like months, I think, some ridiculous situation. And I just like that does not Like another team being in that situation does not make me confident for that team. Like that was what caused the Clutch story to be so good. It doesn't mean that just because they did it, other teams will do it. I think it actually really makes what they did remarkable. And I don't have a ton of confidence that another team will repeat that situation anytime soon. Maybe Golden Guardians will be, but I would recognize that as like 2 miracles in 2 years. You know, Mark,
I think to the callers, to give them some credit, I do think that they have a lot of things to improve on in a positive way, where they also have a lot of things working pretty well. I think Huni has a unique champion pool, works well with the team, and can win them games like that set. I think he's the best, set support. Not like there's a lot of them in North America, but he's the best set support in North America. And he does have some wrinkles to that. Hanser is a great laner individually. FBI is a great laner. Damonte, like you're talking about, is playing this more supportive style with closer. They have a team style that I can see working. And I think that they have a lot of the laning phase stuff figured out, which is often the biggest concern a lot of the times with teams and ceiling and things like that. Is okay, you can play this way versus bad teams, but then when you get slapped around in lane, you're screwed. And I have a lot less of a concern about that with Golden Guardians in North America. But their mid to late game is still a problem. And I'm still concerned about it. And that's kind of been the rub on them all year. They've always had great laning stats. They've always had good goal differences at 10 as a team and at 15. And, you still see that coming through. But then things just seem to fall apart in the mid to late game. But if they ever fix that, I think you're actually right. That they could be the third seed. Right now, I wouldn't say so. But like to your point, I wouldn't have said that about Clutch. And if they can continue to improve, I think that they could make it. I wouldn't bet on it. I still wouldn't bet on it. But I actually don't think it's as ridiculous as some of the other teams that they're like close to in the standings right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we had a similar call kind of. It was more in relation to Golden Guardians will beat out TSM and be the better team last week. But man, this past weekend doesn't make me more confident for Golden Guardians' chances going through. Again, they went 1-1, and FlyQuest is looking better, right? Like. That's a team that I think people thought was underperforming for a while, and they're starting to look better. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but
I thought that FlyQuest game was actually a pretty close one. I do think FlyQuest is looking better ever since they put Turtle back in, but man, there's this team fight where I'm just watching Hanser, and he gets his ult, and he's on top of PoE, and he's on Azir, and it's what do you think the Azir is going to do? Azir is going to press R at you and flash away. And he just gets hit by the ult. And on the one hand, it is a high execution play to flash that ult, but at the same time, you're a professional player. Bang did it literally the day before. It's not that insane to be flash follow the Azir when you see that ult come out, or just flash on top of him, and then when he flashes away, he's probably still in range of your ult. And then maybe you can win that fight, or at least you're positioned correctly to finish off Turtle, who lived with 100 HP. And the game could have been different there. And same with their fight at Red Jungle was another one where they were just horribly disconnected. And they easily could have beat FlyQuest in that game if they were just a little bit better in a couple of those situations. So, I mean, FlyQuest is better right now. I would definitely, if they played a best of 5, I'd bet on FlyQuest. But it's not like they're insanely better.
Yeah, I mean, they're tied with EG. They're only a game down on FlyQuest. TSM's obviously a couple games up, but I think you guys definitely made all great points. And I'm not saying Golden Guardians necessarily is the team that's gonna not go 0-6 in a group hypothetically against 2 Chinese teams and a European team, whatever. But I definitely think they at least I think that the strengths they have as a team are going under the radar. And when people are talking about it's gonna be C9 TL FlyQuest, I think that's not necessarily gonna be true, or is a lock or something like that, or TSM. So yeah, that's what I want to call in and talk about.
River King, thanks for the call. Anything you want to say before we move on to our next caller?
Yeah, I actually called in probably about 5 weeks ago. I was the call where we talked about Vainglory, and I talked about team management. I just think it was a disaster for everyone included, because I wasn't really elaborating on my point for a while. I don't know if you remember, but it was just a fun call for all of us. So I'm glad this one went a little better. We had a more narrow conversation. But thanks for y'all. I love listening. Subscribed a couple months ago, and go C9.
Yeah, thanks so much for the call.
Yeah.
By the way, Steve was in chat earlier. I don't know if he's still around, but shout out to Steve, because I got an email that I guess I'm going to be talking to you later this week about something secret.
Say TL into the camera 3 times and it'll show back up.
Yeah. No, normally it's like I need to say something like Broxa won't be on TL next year, and then he suddenly shows up and goes, "What?" Or if I said something like, "I don't think C9 is actually the best team," Jack would suddenly be in chat and be like, "Hey guys, just got back from dinner. What did I miss?" And it's just like, teams are.
See, look, and Nero's going to bed right now because he got his Golden Guardians topic and he's like, all right, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds about right.
I wonder if that works with like international teams. If we started talking about G2, would Carlos show up?
Carlos, guys, it's 4 a.m. I can't sleep. I heard something. What's going on here? All right. Anyway, you want to go grab the next. All right, there he goes. Vienna with the sub. Thank you, Vienna. How's it going? Everybody go check out Vienna's stream. C9 Vienna. She streams. Mordos the DK. Thank you for the Prime. Wafflefoot. Thank you for the 1 year. St. Louis Slayer 24. Thank you for the 25 months. And Furba 2 for the 25 months. And ESN Josh for 2 years. Well, a bunch of subs. Thank you, everybody. bmorris is here. bmorris, where are you calling from?
Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, a Canadian. Okay, but you're not Bluejay, right?
No, I'm one of Bluejay's disciples, actually. He's
Bluejay
dispatched us to Western Canada now.
Are you...
Bluejay is in the waiting room, to be fair.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, do you know Bluejay?
No, he's in Ontario, so we're quite a ways away from each other.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So, I don't remember how exactly I worded the take, but basically I think that TSM is gonna win the split, and I feel like they're gonna kind of mirror the similar style of the old G2, not the 5 and whatever they are right now, G2. The old G2 that was just dominated EU, just kind of maybe a not so much on steroids like they were, but I think that they'll, with Bjergsen and Doublelift playing to the levels that they can play at, I think they'll mimic the same carry style like Caps and Perks did over there.
And then Spica will be just like Yankos and win a bunch of MVPs, right?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
And Broken Blade will turn into Wunder, who's able to go toe to toe against the best Chinese and Korean tops at Worlds in 2018 and help carry the team in the Aatrox Akali meta.
I don't think that Broken Blade is like deserving of as much flack as he's getting. Like he's not. I don't think Broken Blade is as bad as the community is saying as he is. Spica, I'll give you the Spica because like he's new.
I mean,
like,
rarely is anybody as bad as the community is saying that they are.
Yeah. I just think Spica's pretty new. I definitely don't expect Spica to be Yankos like on any level at all. But I mean, that's the biggest question mark for me was Spica. But I mean, I think that's why I said not on steroids as G2 was. But I still think it'll be enough that Spica will play up the level enough to beat C9 with Bjergsen and Doublelift playing. Because I think Bjergsen's a lot better than Niski, and I think that Doublelift can play better than Sven.
How long have you been a TSM fan for?
Oh, like way back in the day, like when Doublelift before Doublelift was on before Doublelift left even.
What TSM merch do you own?
None.
Oh wow, you don't own any. Okay.
No, not like that hardcore.
Trying to build out a profile of you because I feel like it takes a pretty hard.
What is this, like
TSM
CSI or whatever?
Yeah. No. I just
it's psychology of a serial killer.
I don't think we tend to have
mind state.
TSM definitely gives us the most amount of calls like this, where like TSM could be in last place, and you'd have a caller come in and be like, "Man, Bjergsen's he's so good, and like everybody else is just not as good, and that is why they're gonna win Worlds this year." It's always great. Okay, so, your take is I guess you were saying they have a higher ceiling than anybody else, and they're going to hit it before playoffs or during playoffs.
They'll hit it. I think they'll hit it during playoffs. I think they'll just I think Doublelift's gonna get his playoff kind of like buff. Not his group stage nerf, but I think he's gonna get a little bit of a buff in playoffs, and I think he's just gonna him and Bjergsen I think are just gonna kind of stomp like we expected them to.
Do you feel like tactical is gonna be, or not tactical? Treats is gonna be enough for Doublelift, given that he just sort of started playing recently. I mean,
I do. Part of that. The reason is that I think that Doublelift is actually going to be playing up to that level that we used to see him at is because of Treats. Just in his brief statement on the TSM Legends, he kind of seemed like he was like kind of happy to have treats. I don't know if that was just for the.
Could you find me a situation where Doublelift gets the new support and isn't happy to have them?
That's no, probably not. That's true.
I was just saying, like, I don't take a ADC saying he's happy to be playing with his new support as evidence that, like, and by the way, I'm not ragging on treats. I'm not saying treats is bad. It's just like, it's if I would just objectively, you're putting a lot of this on the ADC who just started playing with a new support for the first time. And these guys have like a matter of weeks to figure everything out before playoffs. And you're saying that Doublelift is going to be, him and Bjergsen together are going to be like the thing that carry TSM beyond like the incredibly dominant C9 that we've seen this split, beyond like the TL that seems to still be, I don't know, lucking into wins in some cases. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, like that fucking, I mean, even the game they just played versus CLG, if that blast cone isn't there, if they get womboed and lose Baron, you know,
because everybody was telling me that, you know, TSM is the greatest. CLG sucks after that game, you know.
I mean, CLG does suck. I'm not saying that, but that's what I'm saying. Is TSM almost lost to that CLG?
Yeah, well, so it's just a tough one for me to swallow, my Canadian friend.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's a bit of a bold statement, but I don't know. I think that. I don't know. I just got a feeling that, they'll just lose, go 0-2 next week, and then here I'll be that jerk on the Hotline League that's just another TSM fanboy. So I guess who knows? But.
Like, I mean, so Bjergsen and Doublelift are obviously historically great players. Broken Blade's a little streaky, but you know his highs are actually fairly high. Spica, I'm pretty concerned about. Treats, I haven't seen enough, and you know, especially in best of ones and different strengths of opponents, you know, it's hard to get a good read on, especially coming in the middle of the split. Because you know this week was relatively easy. It was Dig and it was CLG, and they did 2-0, but it was a bit of a squeaker in that last game. So I am still a little concerned. I'm not bought in yet, even as like the third place team, which I know they are. I don't think it's like FlyQuest or EG or even Golden Guardians couldn't figure their shit out real good in the next couple weeks, and then TSM's falling behind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not confident they're going to go to Worlds, and you're proposing that they're going to win the split.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know. I just really think that we're gonna see them like figure it all out within this last little clump, and then throughout the playoffs. Like I think they'll by the time they get to that last round in finals, they're going to be at the level that they need to be to beat. If we're assuming that C9 is in the finals, I think they'll be ready.
I feel like right now, if I had to bet, I would say C9, TL, TSM go to Worlds, because I do kind of agree with you that TSM in a best of 5, like stakes get high and Doublelift and Treats figure their stuff out. I could totally see a world where like TSM clutches out an entrance into Worlds, but it's really hard for me to make the next logical jump that like TSM beats the dominant team in the finals. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really tough for me to see.
If you came in here and tried to convince us that TSM's going to make Worlds for sure and they're going to figure it out, easier sell. Top.
Yeah.
But that's not spicy.
True.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be that.
I also take well argumented,
yeah,
reasonable takes.
I mean, for instance, if you said like TSM is for sure going to Worlds, I think Mark would have been drawn to that take as well. I don't want your lessons from this or anybody else's lessons to be. If I'm a fan of, if I want to make an argument that I think a team is good, I need to stretch it to the extreme. Otherwise, Mark won't pull me.
The Golden Guardians guy got on just talking about Golden Guardians going to Worlds.
Yeah,
he did not say they're going to beat C9.
Yeah, but I think there's less of a chance of Golden Guardians being C9 than there is of TSM being C9.
Probably. I agree with that.
But no, I don't know. And then also just like a small side point about Travis. I know you're so hot on like Broxah not being on TL
I'm not
next
so
year.
hot. All right, this was.
You're all over that, dude.
It was spun out of a conversation we
You're
were
taking
having.
your
It
shirt
wasn't
off
like
and rubbing that rumor all over your body as baby oil.
Yeah, I
Every
wasn't.
single
I wasn't
video-
like, hey, I'm going to do a dedicated
I
video.
have
about
some
how-
news for you about Broxa.
Every single YouTube video that's going to be posted on Travis is like, oh, hey, by the way, what do you think of this idea that Broxa not being on TL by the end of the split?
What? Anyway, what is your take?
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
Where are you going with this?
Just like that, I like you guys say Spica is the question mark. What if they replace Spica with Broxa to fill the Yankos shoes, like you guys criticized?
I don't know.
Just a thought.
Or I don't know if Brox can fill the Yanko shoes.
No, they always talked about him on the LEC. I watched a lot of the LEC when he was there, and they always kind of talked about, like, I remember like Frost especially like mentioning how like they were kind of the only two that were like just about equal.
I don't
You
think
can't
Peter
go
picks
treat,
Broxa as his jungler again. Is my take. Because I think, like, I'm not saying Peter doesn't like Broxa or anything like that. I just think Peter seems to, like, I mean, just based off public statements, not. I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine him pulling TL players to TSM.
Besides, you need to bench treats to do it.
Oh, okay, yeah, for the import slots. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. That was just a side note, but yeah, that's basic. That was just
When
my
is,
take.
how long until Broken Blade?
That doesn't happen
Oh,
anymore.
it's this
does
way. It seems like he's been over here forever, but I guess he hasn't.
Yeah,
I admit that I'm probably not as informed about when that cutoff point started as I should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Broken Blade being another import slot.
Yeah,
So.
it seems like he's been there forever. Hey,
Yeah.
anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
No, just like shout out to Alienware, and I just want to shout out my podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have a podcast to shout out. A new channel. That's it. Just shout out to Alienware, and thanks for the take.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks.
All right, we got about 3 more callers to go. And where are we? I think I said Mordos the DK. Thank you for the Prime, just in case I didn't. Shurikan NA, thank you for the 13 months. And Martin Martinov, thank you for the Prime. We got Trooper here. Trooper, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. How's things in Washington, D.C. right now, actually?
Hot and humid.
Okay.
Kind of nasty.
Yeah.
Nothing
it's
going
a
on
swamp,
with
right?
Well, it's not necessarily a swamp. It's just the weather. There's in July. I've lived here about 3 years. There's just always like 2 or 3 weeks where the weather is just awful.
Gotcha. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So my topic was that it's pretty clear now that before there wasn't enough evidence to show it, but it's clear that Doublelift was the problem on Team Liquid with, Tactical coming in and kind of playing consistent, even not even better than Doublelift did all of Spring Split.
Hashtag Doublelift was the problem. You're pulling
Yep.
the Twitch chat meme.
Well, I had another one, but I'm gonna stick with this one.
Was
Travis,
Doublelift
you
the
first.
problem? I mean, I think what is really interesting to me, and I am but not an analyst enough to understand this, but if I had a panel of 3 or 4 analysts, I feel like I would ask this question. It's like, what does it mean that CoreJJ is having such a better split now than when last split when he was with Doublelift? And I saw this conversation break out in the Reddit thread, I think, after maybe it was the TLC9 game. It was one of the TL games this weekend where people were debating how much of an impact Doublelift had on CoreJJ's play and arguing that CoreJJ screwed up on his own, and I don't know. But I think that is a really, it's not a good look for Peter that CoreJJ is having such a good split now in comparison to last split.
And I don't want it to come off the wrong way. Like, I was a huge Doublelift fan, and I just think that, Doublelift leaves, and that's the only change that TL made, and now they're tied for first.
Well,
I mean,
let me sell you on another narrative about
Okay.
how Jat is the greatest
There it
coach
is.
North America has ever seen.
honestly,
'Cause-
I've been
'cause-
following Jat since like season 3, and I'm a huge fan of Jat's.
So let's talk about, like Doublelift was the problem, but who was he butting heads with the most? The coaching staff.
Yeah, but the coaching
What
staff
do
is
you-
still there.
Yeah, they only changed one thing.
Let's not use logic here, okay? They bring in a new head coach who totally revitalizes every single element of their system and carries them all the way back up to second from 9th place.
Yeah, but if I'm right, I'm pretty sure Kane and the rest of their team is still sitting stuff, and Jad is just giving his like head coach
Haven't you
actual
seen
type
how
of opinion.
Their play style has completely changed with Jat.
Oh no, I'm not saying that it hasn't. I'm just saying that like the head
Mark
coach
is
is the one
saying that it
there.
hasn't. I think is what
Yeah,
he's
I'm
getting at.
saying.
But no, I think honestly that like when it comes down to it, what is it? Every single game that TL has played against TSM, it just looks like TSM is just a kind of a dumpster fire right now. There's no narrative. They're irrelevant. I mean, if I had to have an irrelevancy list, I would say that TSM is probably 8th or 9th in terms of relevancy amongst all the current
The third
storylines.
place
They've
team
only
is
played. They've only played one game against TSM, by the way. So when you say every game they've played, you mean the week 1 game that they've played.
the week
Sure.
1 game.
Yeah, but
Also,
TSM is
the
already.
third place team is. You'd rather talk about Immortals, CLG, Dignitas, 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians. You'd rather talk about who is the one team that you don't want to hear about over TSM?
Who I don't want to hear about, IMT.
Yeah, because you said they're not. So okay, every other team you'd rather hear about than TSM.
Yeah, I mean they've been doing that. It's been the 100 T and the EG and the FlyQuest narrative. That's what it's been. I mean Cloud9 and Team Liquid have been at the top the entire split for summer, and it's been 100 T and it's been Dignitas and it's been Golden Guardians and been FlyQuest bringing it back up. Where's the conversation of TSM?
They brought in treats. They're still
Oh.
They're still at 3rd place with a 2-game. Like, was it 1 or 2 game lead? 1 game lead.
Sorry,
1
when
game
you
lead?
say where's the I got lost here. Are we talking about the analyst desk or like what people are
Oh
saying?
no,
yeah,
I'm just saying. I'm just
Reddit
saying. I'm just saying in general. Because here's the thing. Even if TSM, because here's the scenario. TSM has lost both of their games to FlyQuest. If they tie, FlyQuest makes it into Worlds. TSM gets 4th.
All
they
right,
beat
I feel
them
like
in-
I feel like we've lost the thread here.
I don't.
Oh, but
even
no,
recall.
still, I think
So-
Doublelift was the problem on TL. He
Okay.
leaves the team and they go back to the top of the league.
Okay.
Also, TSM is in 3rd now when they were struggling in spring. Also,
Sure, but they're only 1 game ahead, and the team they're behind beat them both times.
Okay. So, a couple things here.
Sure.
First off, okay. you seem. Maybe you can. I know you and Mark are going back and forth. Okay, I'm not involved in this. I'm just gonna talk from the sideline. A lot of people are gonna say I can't be critical of Doublelift. I know I see this all the time. I definitely think Doublelift was a negative influence on TL in spring. I think he probably did more to hold that team back than he did to make it succeed for the vast majority of the split. I mean, these are things that he has even said halfway through the split. Where he admitted his attitude was an issue and stuff like that. He just didn't like the way that the coaches and stuff handled stuff with him. So I 100% think that. I do think that there's a very good chance that CoreJJ, for instance, looked worse than he normally does, in part because of the lane partner that he had. I do think that other things have helped TL. I know that Broxa is definitely not feeling like he's in super sync, and as people keep saying, I'm big on the Broxa not on the team. But I do think that having him around for a much longer period of time has been good, and replacing Doublelift with Tactical, and this is not just a Doublelift thing, but also the addition of Tactical, I think is pretty good, because I think he's this new fresh rookie that has been quite fantastic. And even though I am, a very anti-Jat, because when I tried to get him on Hotline League, he didn't come on the show, and then he did a fucking podcast with Team Liquid, and then he did all these other interviews with everybody else, and then he didn't come on the goddamn show, and I was told it was just because it was too early and he'd come on the show later, but then I was never presented with the opportunity to have him on after. I still think Jat has probably helped improve things a little bit, even though the other coaches are there too. I think it's
I would agree that it's definitely there's a holistic improvement, and I think though what it comes down to as well is when everything got switched, it's this whole, and correct me if I'm wrong, back in spring split, Tactical subbed in for Doublelift for a weekend, and that weekend he popped off. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that happened, and then they benched Doublelift for another weekend, and Tactical lost, and then they brought Doublelift back in.
Yeah.
So one thing here I want to correct Twitch chat about because I saw some people talking about this, like, oh, how do you really think TSM is better than they were in spring? They have the same number of wins already as they had in spring. They finished 9-9 last split. They're 9-5 right now. Yes, they're fucking better, and Doublelift is better than Cade. At least comparing their performances in spring and summer, for what they were doing on TSM. Doublelift is a way better influence. If they go 0-4 and I'm eating shit in 2 weeks, I will happily eat that shit. I will shovel it down if I'm wrong about this.
Maybe we can take a step back and maybe not use that.
Say
analogy.
though, looking at the upcoming schedule for the rest of the split, I would say TSM is going to go probably 50-50. They go up against Cloud9, TL, Evil Geniuses. I mean, they're not TSM is not going up against easy opponents at the end of the line.
Nope.
Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they drop 3 games.
But
sure, that would still be better.
And
True.
That would still be better. I think the other thing is that is not necessarily indicative of like, oh man, if only they had Cade. This team would be so much better.
not even about Cade. Just like also the league's just better this split. Cloud9 has lost more games. Team Liquid is not a 9th place team. Teams that were the 2nd and 3rd place team in EG and FlyQuest are now struggling. It's a more competitive split if you also want to actually start using your eyeballs and logic and not just
or
use
everyone
the
else
actual.
is worse.
I would also say
I don't think it's possible to get worse. It is not possible to get worse
than what we were in spring.
What we were in spring is probably some of the worst shit I've ever seen. So I don't think it's possible that happened. Like everyone got worse and suddenly TSM floated up.
I mean, and looking at TL's rest of the split, they're probably going up against the easier half of the lineup, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, but this isn't what the point is. The point was Doublelift's the problem, right? Like, and I
think
100%. And I actually do think that Doublelift was kind of the problem in terms of like what people are talking about with the CoreJJ thing. Like, I've played on teams where one person had a stinky attitude and it spilled over, and it's hard to function as a team if that's happening. As well as they had a lot of other complications with Broxus showing up late. I'm not saying the coaches handled everything perfectly either. Coaches could have been part of the problem as well. About the whole point about being a holistic thing, but
I think a point that needs to be made is that I don't think this call could have been made until maybe the last week or the last 2 weeks. There wasn't enough information out there or enough examples to pull from Summer Split for you to say like, oh yes,
I would have said Doublelift was a problem the moment that TL flunked out of playoffs. Like
I did say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. And so like that's like, look, I'm not criticizing you for calling in with this take because I do think I think to your what is true is we now do have more data. We can tell how much of a problem Doublelift was, and perhaps you could say he was this is kind of a weird way of phrasing it, but like a bigger problem than some would have speculated, right? Especially given how well TL has done since then.
And it's also to say that Doublelift has improved since then. It's not like because he was a problem in spring, he's still the same problem now on TSM.
Right.
I don't think that's true. Like
he's way more motivated.
He's way more motivated. He's having a bigger influence on these games than Cade did. I think if you look at that CLG game, that's a game that spring TSM loses for sure because, I mean, Doublelift didn't even play that clean, if we're being honest. Like he had like a flash into a wall. Maybe it was a shift into a wall. I don't know. He had some mistakes, right? But like he's at least playing aggressive and looking for things to improve. But the relationship on Team Liquid had clearly soured, and like it was never going to work after that point. Like once people hate each other, it's a little hard to sing Kumbaya and hope it all comes back. It doesn't work like that. So that's why, to the point, yes, he was the problem, but it's not like he's still the problem on TSM and he's a garbage player or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would not put Doublelift in the top 380 carries. I'd put him 4th or 5th. I'd say it's Sven, and then there's FBI, and probably, I know I'm going to mess up the last one that I had. I can't remember my last point,
Tactical?
but I know that he... Tactical, thank you. Tactical, thank you.
I mean, I think the 80 carry position is actually really competitive right now, which isn't really a rub on Doublelift. I think Tactical coming in the league, being good, is an improvement. I think Johnson's been pretty good this split, even with Dig kind of being on fire. Bang's pretty good. I said Tactical. Obviously Sven, and then
FBI?
FBI. There we go. That was the one I was thinking of. FBI is also really good. So like I think the AD carry position is just a strong position in North America.
I'm definitely excited to see where what is it that was like end of teams, like best teams, team 1, team 2s end up falling.
Here's where I will agree with, or where I will sort of take your take, Trooper, before we sign out here is like, I don't think that Doublelift has proven what he wanted to prove after he went to TSM. I think he went to TSM feeling bitter about his time on TL and was very vocal in him wanting to sort of show up TL and show that, like he
doesn't need them.
Didn't need them, and how great of a player he is and that kind of thing. But to your point, I think there's a really good argument to be made that Doublelift isn't top 3 this split, based off of his performance so far, and that TSM doesn't look better than TL, and that perhaps like the X is going to win out and look better in the long run. I mean, I would definitely say that TL has a way higher chance of going to Worlds than TSM does right now, and if the 2 callers that we've had on the past 2 shows are correct, like in Golden Guardians goes instead of TSM, like that is not gonna be.
If any team goes outside of TSM.
Yeah, I think.
I mean,
it probably feels worse for Doublelift if it's Golden Guardians.
I also think if TL whiffs, maybe Doublelift is still, I think he's more sad that he's not going, but at least, it's not like Travis is saying the X is now on a Caribbean cruise with Leonardo DiCaprio or I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know where we're going with this. Anyway, Trooper,
that fell apart.
Anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Just been watching the stream probably since the way beginning. I have been a sub here and there, but being a student at the time, it was tough. But obviously, Alienware has some of the best stuff out there. So,
do you remember the Kelby sunglasses colored lighting days?
Yes, of course. Those were some of my favorite days.
Yeah, and then Mark stopped using colored lighting, and it just killed the show.
Kelby left. If Kelby comes back, I'll figure it out.
Great.
They sell light change bulbs.
I have them.
Anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Have a good one.
You too.
All right, we got 2 more callers to go. Mark is going to grab one. Steve's in the chat still. Hi, Steve. Silently listening to the Doublelift conversation, not saying anything. Odd One Villain, thank you for the 21 months. Popstovich, 15. White Tiger, 379 Rob, thank you for 3 months. EM No Name for CG Gladiator and Blossom SBU, I think it's how it is. Thank you so much. Jesse Roberts here. Jesse, where are you calling from?
Sanderson, Texas.
Sanderson, Texas. Great name, Sanderson. I'm a big fan. Either way, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So I'm not sure which half of it Mark pulled me for, but I said that if Dig had started this roster at the beginning of the split, they could have been 5th place. And if they had kept Damonte, which I really wish they had, then they could have been competing for potentially the last spot for Worlds against Fly.
Mark, did you pull him for one of these 2 in particular?
It was kind of the combination of like how good could Fly have been, or excuse me, Dig with this roster / with Damonte.
So I guess.
Oh, go ahead.
So just kind of like go over my points for you.
Yeah.
So I also like pulled some stats. So I'm not just a Dig fanboy. I'm also, to clarify, not a Dig fanboy. But just kind of like, obviously I do think top is their weakest role, but I think that Johnson and Aframu have been super consistent. Aframu has been having a comeback season. You could maybe argue last time we saw this was like 2018 100 Thieves, but I think honestly even before that with like 2016 CLG. So he's looking really good compared to previous years. And even with, so if you look at their wins, obviously it's only 4, so super small sample size. Their early game objective control has been kind of trash, and yet they're still able to pull out these big wins, and they're averaging a lot of kills with very few deaths, only like 6.5, which is somewhere around like 3rd lowest in wins. And like I said, I know only 4 a game. And then also their average game time in wins is 2nd fastest at 31.4. So when they do get a lead in the mid game, they just take it and run with it. And I really think that a lot of their problems this season have stemmed from just like the burning fire that has been happening within their management, whether it's just switching out nonstop and like the fact that they switched Lorlo in and then back out and then all these different roster changes, I think, have just really hurt the players overall. And then I guess we can cover that before I move on to the Damonte point.
I mean, I think it's fine to combo in the Damonte point with it. I mean,
I assume you're just going to say Damonte looks really good and would be a better mid laner
than Phoenix, yeah.
Well, mostly, yeah, better than Phoenix, but also, honestly, I kind of see like the Damonte Dardoch synergy would be somewhat similar to closer synergy. Like, obviously, both very aggressive junglers, and I think Damonte also, like, if Dig had kept him, that would have made a statement to him, kind of saying like, okay, we trust you over Froggen, like we trust you over this veteran. We're giving you your shot, and that would have been a lot of motivation for him at the beginning of the split to just take it and run with it, kind of like we see with him at Golden Guardians now.
Mark, that's why I'm not going to get a cat.
He didn't bite me hard. He just gave me this little nip to say, hey, don't put your arm there. That's how they communicate. Look, there's no mark.
Your other cat is like, it actually does make me kind of want to get a cat. That cat makes me not want to get a cat. And so I'd say they're a neutral on me.
It's really nice. What do you mean? He's sitting on my lap and hanging out.
He's trying to murder your headset. Anyway.
He's cute.
Mark, does Dignitas regret trading Damonte?
I don't know what the fuck that orc's thinking. What do you mean? All right, buddy. That's enough.
I mean, I feel like if they're being honest with themselves, they should, right?
I would think so. I mean, I don't really know what their goals were.
I mean, they bet on Froggen, right? Because my understanding was there was a tryout. Damonte, they decided to go with Froggen instead of Damonte, but now they're not running Froggen.
With this contract rumor too, about the whole must start Froggen thing. I think that they thought that their spring lineup was going to be really good and competitive with Huni and Froggen and Grig, and they were going to somehow be good with that lineup. I think that was their thinking. And when that didn't happen, they're like, oh shit, we're paying a lot for a bad team. Cut everything, punt, go next year. And then they got rid of all their assets for some reason. And then they're doing this now.
I mean, did they get rid of all their assets?
Well, they got rid of Froggen, and then they got rid of Huni, and then they got rid of Damonte, right? And then they picked up Viper to start when they had Lorla. Like, I don't know.
Still isn't Froggen still on that team? You said they got rid of him, but like,
I mean, yeah, but no.
I mean, I assume they're still paying. Like, when you say they got rid of all their assets, I assume you mean like they dropped players' contracts. And
I mean,
the only one I'm aware of that they dropped was Huni's, and then they traded Damonte.
Is that not just dropping it? I don't know what the deal was, but they wanted to get rid of him. I don't know.
They wanted to get rid of Damonte, you mean?
Yeah, why would they move him otherwise?
Yeah. I'm sorry. You said all their assets, and so I thought I was confused because I thought you were also implying they got rid of Froggen and like if they were just shedding costs all over the place.
Getting rid of all their assets is probably not the right term. They got rid of their fat contract, and I don't know what Damonte's contract was. I have to assume
it can't have been that high because he was an academy.
But at the same time, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, dude. Maybe they just never thought they'd start him. I don't know. All right. Let's not try and wrap our heads around the madmen, okay? I kind of understand what the caller's point is about how the Lorlo being a weak side tank while you play around Aframu's counter pick on engage and playmaking supports with an aggressive jungler and a supportive playmaking mid laner with, kind of having this AD carry who looks pretty good in Johnson. If that's your lineup and Damonte is that mid laner who's helping you hit that play style, I actually think that could be a good org. I don't know if I go team. I don't know if I go all the way to Worlds, but they would be a lot better than they are right now. So it's to me, I understand the caller's point. I think I agree with it. Maybe not as far as.
Yeah, I don't think Dig is going to Worlds with Damonte on it.
So with that in mind, like mostly my take was that they would like compete for I think my specific one is that they would be pushed to compete for the last spot against Fly. So I don't really think that they could. I think at that point they get exposed for kind of like champion depth pool, and also just like Fly has more styles they could play around. Honestly, I think I don't see a world where Dig could ever really play around top side and never not play around Dardoch. At least, like I'd never could see Dardoch on like a tank jungler. honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there. I mean, the thing that's weird now is like even with us thinking that Afro should be on playmaking supports at this point in the season, we're still seeing Afro on Lulu and Enchanters and stuff. Post week 5. More than halfway through the split. So that's where I'm like, I don't know that just having a one player upgrade arguably is gonna totally change how this team functions.
Yeah, I think this Dig roster's fucked. That's my take. Like I've been going back and forth on it a ton, and I don't think like, man, if we just slap a Damonte on this baby, it'll take you all the way to Worlds. Like I just
the car salesman hit the hood.
I don't think so. I don't know. I think it's too much of a mess. I'm not. I think there are other teams where you can make that argument. You just like, if you just tweak this, or you just threw this player in, or something like that, you're gonna feel a lot better. And I think Dig is a bit of a stretch, right? Like I think that's more of a take for 100 Thieves, or I don't know, like a EG, I guess, something like that. Even like a CLG, I feel like if you just like could be potentially better if you just swap out a player more likely than Dig would. But I don't know. I think raising the point of, man, Damonte looks to be doing pretty good, and this was a player they gave up, and Vulcan looks to be doing pretty good, and this is a player they gave up, and Froggen, who they decided to keep, is now no longer competing. Like, there are a lot of indicators that Dignitas is in need of a bigger brain for 2021, and I hope they get it. This is where I would put this. Jesse, is there anything you want to say before we move on to our last caller?
Just one quick point. So like everyone's flaming, saying that they like wouldn't even get like 5th or 4th, honestly. But like you have to keep in mind like who the bottom of the standings are right now, and they did get their wins against EG, CLG, Fly, IMT. So if you see this from like the very start of the season, I think you could potentially see Dig at like whether it's like 8-8 or even maybe 7-9.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Other than that, Twitter, Jesse Loretto 21. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Have a good one. If anybody dislikes that take, I guess you can go directly to Twitter for him. Yeah, go grab the last caller. Thank you. Oh, nobody else new subbed. We'll just sit here in silence.
Dude, you pulled that so damn fast. I didn't even have...
Your microphone's fine. Let's get on with it.
Okay.
Bluejay is here.
I posted a few different topics though, so
I'm
sure
unsurprised
exactly.
That you did.
Yeah, I know.
It was the FlyQuest one.
Okay. All right.
All right, say your thing.
Man, Travis,
you want to call it early,
tonight.
Travis? I'm feeling pretty
actually. Sorry, we usually end at 10, and we're 3 minutes over. So, Bluejay, I just want to thank you so much for.
Thanks, man. It's been great being on the show.
Sorry we don't have time for you, but I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.
You did.
Oh my god! You kicked him out, actually.
I'm trying to decide if we should Matt Damon him, like
yeah. Right.
No, it's fine. We'll let him say his thing because people.
Nice.
What's your take?
Okay. So my take is that FlyQuest is actually going to be the next team going to Worlds, and I do actually really appreciate the people saying Golden Guardians might be the team going to Worlds. I think they've looked really good, but FlyQuest is just a little bit better for me. I can elaborate on that a little bit more if you need me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So out of all the teams, out of all of their wins, I think FlyQuest wins are the cleanest. I also think that they are on par with TL right now, which I think a lot of people will disagree with that. However, we always give shit to all these teams like CLG or even TSM and a little bit to TL about how their wins aren't that clean. I think that's true with just about just about all the teams in the league except for Cloud9 and FlyQuest. So, and I could go a little bit more, but I think that's enough for now to get it started, right?
What do you think, Mark?
Enough? I think it's enough to actually end it.
Yeah.
All right, wrap it up, boys.
I was hot on FlyQuest coming in. I think I power ranked them second coming into the split.
I mean, they
And
got second last split, right? So it's not that crazy.
right, but I meant like I put TL third, so like I wasn't like just copy pasting the standings from last split.
Sure.
I just thought from what I had seen out of FlyQuest, I thought their top side of the map was really good. I thought Turtle wasn't that volatile of a player anymore, and like it allowed Ignar to roam, and I thought they had this whole style that seemed to work pretty well. I don't know what happened with their team behind the scenes to bench Turtle after a single week, one of which included a loss to C9 of all teams. So ever since then, I've not really known what to make of this team. I still believe that Santorin's really good, PoE's really good, Solo's really good, Turtle and Ignar can be really good, and that they could go to Worlds. But it's just there's a lot up in the air after these roster swaps and stuff.
So I agree with almost everything you said. The only thing that I would change a little bit is that the Ignar could be really good. I think Ignar's been really, really good with Pantheon, and well, I mean, he's getting Pantheon banned all the time, but I mean, he's following it up with Rakan, and his Rakan has been freaking good, man. Like really, really good. And
yeah, but he also had the Nautilus game. I mean, this was still when MASH was in, but like he was so bad that game. And then there was the Senna game. I forget what he was playing, but him and MASH got slammed.
Yeah, okay, that's not fair though. That game, like, they were losing before they even made it to lane. If you remember, they took a shitty path, and then they got chunked out before they even made it to lane.
Who made them do that stuff?
Well, you had Farm Senna as well, which I know you've also been critical about as well. Like, that's
it's actually the meta now. I mean, I'll eat crow on that.
Now, but at the time it was not, right?
Right, but nothing's changed.
What do you mean nothing's changed?
Nothing changed in the meta to make it.
There was no. I thought that was the patch before Senna got the buffs to, like non-farm Senna. I thought that she got a buff that patch.
It was pretty minor, if I remember correctly. It was a change on. What was it?
I can't tell you the exact change, but what I do know is that even small buffs do make a difference, especially at the pro level. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but it was being played elsewhere in the world. It was just not picked up on yet. MASH was it was not played in any major regions yet, but minor regions around the world were already starting to do that, and they're usually more experimental with drafts and stuff. And I slammed it. I'll admit straight up that, yeah, that was probably the wrong analysis. That build was actually fine. They just played it like poop. And that's where I'd go with this point to return to Ignar's. I'd say he's been the second worst performer on the team. And you can put some of that. Yeah, and you can put some of that on the bot lane swaps and having to play with different marksmen. I'm not saying he's bad, but his performance in games has not been up to his own standard from spring. And that's why I have not returned to my belief in them that I quite had coming into the season.
So then that makes me wonder, do you have someone else going to Worlds in their place or no?
I don't know. I think it's all a toss up. Like between them, TSM, EG, Golden Guardians, I really would not be shocked no matter what happened a month from now.
Yeah, actually same, but I actually think that TSM is the least likely of all of those minus EG. I think EG is a freaking coin toss right now. That team's impossible
now
to
we're
predict.
going into a new take, so I'm not sure if we want to go there because we are over time for this.
Okay. We'll keep it on FlyQuest.
I'll say this to wrap up my thoughts on it. FlyQuest has been a hard team to pin down because I felt like they punted half their season with their roster swap. But I think they have the talent to make Worlds easily.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And also their next 4 games, by the way, 100 Thieves, EG, CLG, and Immortals. Like that could very easily be a 4-0.
That is a really good point.
12-6, by the way.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than TSM's strength of schedule.
Yeah, so I'm really liking where they can position themselves to get a better playoff bracket as well, which I think does matter.
Yeah, I mean, it matters, right? Like, people compete to get the best playoff bracket, but I don't know. I think they got to figure... What's really interesting is I think we're in a place right now where every team outside of C9, even though they've looked a little messy lately, it's kind of a race to see who can figure out their shit faster than everybody else. Because everybody else, it's like, I look at all these teams, and it just feels like, wow, you got to figure out your shit. Oh, you got to figure out your shit. Oh, I mean, you also have to...
Even TL, I'd say, doesn't really... like, they have their shit figured out. It's just, like, not exciting to point. You know, like
I mean,
I don't think
I would
everyone's sold
agree with
on
that
that,
if they
Mark.
were winning games more confidently and not dropping to EG.
Yeah.
you mean Fly? Didn't they lose to Fly?
Yeah.
Oh,
they
Fly,
lost to
sorry. Yeah, Fly.
I mean, so what I'd say is everyone's losing games. That happens in sports and best of ones. People drop games.
Yep.
They more than any other team in the top have a very well defined play style on what they're going to do every single game.
Yeah, I'm more referring to like getting Broxa pretty integrated into the lineup, and
That's the only. I mean, like you can say they're slow, whatever. I agree. I'm not stoked about it, but they play it well. And Broxa getting more integrated is probably the one thing I'd say is the weakness. But other than that, like it's their choice. I mean, they all want to play more aggressive, but
I mean, I want them to feel confident. You like, I have done so many interviews, Mark, with this team after their wins, and they always feel like losing interviews.
they have such a great high standard they hold themselves to, dude.
I mean, yeah, because like every time I talk to them, they like this Jensen interview that'll go out. Maybe I'll air it after this goes up. But those players always look shell shocked after their wins. You know what I mean? Like they can't.
They just ran a marathon.
Don't understand. Like Jensen literally tweeted like don't know why we won that game. So when I talk about like I want TL to figure their shit out like a bunch of the other teams, it would be great when Jensen is not tweeting, not sure how we won that game after their wins. Like that's
At least they're
not a good
realistic,
sign.
though. Like there's some other teams that have some staff that are really not realistic, man. And I know we don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but like, god damn, it's nice to see some teams that know where they stand and know what they need to work on and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how things go. What do you want to shout out, Bluejay? You got your goddamn podcast.
Yeah, I won't shout out the podcast. Well, unless you want me to shout out the podcast,
No.
I'll for sure shout it out. I won't do that this time. Two quick small little shout outs. One, shout out to the guy who's my disciple. Bluejay Disciples Unite. That's pretty cool. And the other shout out is just to my own Twitter. So it's Bluejay_GG. I haven't been active on Twitter for like a long time, and then I recently just started. So all of my Twitter content is just all LCS. So if you guys want
Bluejay, thanks so much for the
some
call.
LCS stuff,
And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Bluejay_GG. Thanks, guys.
I respect it. Respect the hustle.
I think
that bread.
there's narrow
Get that
windows in which I will allow somebody to plug their own stuff, and maybe I need to start a timer every time it does. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to Ladder Slider, Lexicon TTV, and Tony Tiger for the subs. Thank you to those individuals. That is the show. Mark, what do you got going on this week?
We're gonna film a thing tomorrow. I'm excited. I'm actually really excited about it.
And we'll film it. I don't know when it's going to release, but if you guys, and by the way, if you are listening to this, I gotta figure out what my Audible link is, but don't sign up for Audible until I've got my link in front of you and you can get
Direct them to the YouTube channel. Don't target. What's your YouTube channel for fantasy stuff? You have it made. Direct them to it.
I don't know if you Google Travis Gafford Books YouTube, does it come up? I don't know. Let's find out.
Well, I mean, you can link it. When you put the thing at the end of your YouTube video, instead of having your own sub, you can sub.
So
to
actually,
this
if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Travis Gafford, this is the easiest way to do it. You can, on the right side, you'll see Travis Gafford Books is underneath Awesome Friends. I also have Travis Gafford Tactics, which I never did anything with, but currently have 154 subscribers on Travis Gafford Books, and I'm trying to grow that. Oh, also shout out to Draft Buff. I almost forgot. This past week, I drafted 100 Thieves players, and I lost big time. So, but we're going to do another Travis Gafford draft royale this coming week, so be on the lookout for that on my Twitter.
I got to make chocolate chip cookies with my girlfriend. Break. That's what I got to shout out. There's going to be some delicious chocolate chip cookies.
Jesus. This has been Hotline League.